I'll be your host, co-host of tonight. So let's get started with affording a college education. So next slide, Audi. So I'm going to start off as to why I decided to do this. So I am, I'm from Mexico City. I moved to Berkeley when I was about 11 years old. I was raised by a single mom who has a education up to third grade. And it was very hard. Something that she always kind of pushed me and reminded me is that she wanted me to go to college. And she wanted her daughter, my sister, to go to college. The issue came when, it was time for go to college and we had this huge bill that we have to pay. Mind you that during that time, I was undocumented. So the financial aid for undocumented people was like almost zero. In fact, I actually got rejected from Berkeley City College because I could not prove even my residency. So it was a very tough time. Nevertheless, through perseverance, asking questions, and getting really informed on the process really helped not just me, but also my sister to graduate from college. So I was very lucky to go to community college. I went to Contra Costa College, then transferred to UC Berkeley and graduated in 2009. And this is where the picture with my mom, who also crossed the stage because I felt that as I was graduating from college, she also deserved to walk the stage because both of us were actually graduating from this process for undergrad. And then my sister actually attended UC Riverside and she graduated. She's also a White Scholars alumni. She was actually, she's the reason why I'm actually in the program because she told me of the benefits of being in a program like this one. So through this presentation, I want to share some thoughts, some questions that I ask myself as to how I can prepare you when it comes to college. And there's a very important question that you need to ask is like, how I am going to afford this. Next slide. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what would you do with $40,000? So you can actually grab your cell phone. This is one of those rare occasions where I will actually encourage you to use your cell phone, and you can either text your response is through writing at 37607 or go to the website paulev.com/YSB001. And I want you to type in, what would you do with $40,000? If someone was going to give you that, what would you do with $40,000? So I'm going to give, maybe a few seconds, write it down. What would you buy? What would you do? What would you save? What would you? And no, I am not asking you to I'm going to pay for college, right? Like, what would you actually do with $40,000? Donate to Y Scholars. Wow, thank you. That melted my heart. Okay. Okay, well, I like it. Philanthropy, buy a car, save for college. Nice. Bought a car, okay. Invest in stock, okay. Hopefully gold. I don't see that. Valentina will put it into something. All right, these are actually really good. Buy a large house for my family. All right, I love it. I love it. So it seems like, either investing or buying something, which that I will definitely do a lot of things that you all shared. All right, next slide. So what I will do is actually, one thing would be buy a car. In this case, I will buy this Mercedes-Benz that averages between $38,000 and $45,000. That's how I will save. And in fact, a few years ago, there was a survey done by a bank that offers financial literacy, and they asked a group of high school students, what would they do with that amount of money? And a large portion of them said, I will buy a car, which I don't blame them, right? Car can be used for transportation, getting from point A to point B, to go to work, to go hang out with your friends, you name it. In a way, it's kind of an investment. Next slide. Well, 45,000 will actually be about 1 year of college attendance, of college tuition, if you attend UC Berkeley. So the total cost of attendance will be over $42,000. That is the same amount that you will probably invest in a car like a Mercedes-Benz. Next, click one more time. One more time. Again, this is a year. And the issue here is that a lot of students and families don't realize this. They actually realize this when they actually get their award letter that also includes their bill. So this is something that I really want families and white scholars or students to start thinking about. It's like, how am I going to afford $42,000 a year? And then if you're thinking of doing 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 years, just multiply that number times the number of years you plan to do. So this is kind of the question that I want you to think about, and hopefully at the end of this presentation, we can help you come up with some alternative solutions. So here's another opportunity to give me your insight. What's your current plan to pay for college? Is it general savings, a college fund that your parents hopefully created when you were 1 year old, hoping that financial aid will cover the cost? I have no plan yet. Okay, I'm noticing, a large portion of you all are banking that financial aid will help you pay for college. Okay, I see that, we have zero response of a college fund, meaning your parents kind of put in, or someone created a fund for you. Okay, and then some people have a general savings, which is kind of what my mom did. In my case, she had a little bit of savings that helped me with some of the expenses. But for the most part, and sadly, most families do not have a plan. Okay, so financial aid it is, seems like it. All right, so a lot of you probably know this, especially if you're in white scholars. There are 4 potential college alternatives or college options you can go to. You can go to community college, you can go to a California State University, you can go to a campus of a UC, University of California, or you can go to a private school. So those are some options. There are other options that, I don't want to go into details, but these are the main 4 options that I would like to explore today. So the first one is a community college. In this case, Santa Monica College in SoCal. And the cool thing about community colleges is that they're everywhere in California. Next slide. Press more and more. So the cool thing about this community college is that there's no application fee. It costs about over $1,000 per year. Community college run a system where you actually pay by the unit. And ideally, if you want to be a full-time, meaning 12 units or more, it'll be about $1,104, which is often the cheapest option out there. Next. So if you do your 2 years, it will be about $2,000 for those 2 years. But this does not include room and board, meaning, place you will stay, the food, the meals, textbooks, all the other stuff. This is just tuition. And later on, we're actually going to explore what that means. What's the difference between, well, isn't this what it's going to cost me? Why are you putting this huge number? Well, this is just the tuition, meaning the money that you need to pay the school in order for you to be a student there. It does not include the housing, the food, or transportation fees. So just something unique. Oh, go back. Howdy. So the beautiful thing about community college, you have over 100 options. You can go as far as south to San Diego, or all the way up north to the Redwoods. the beautiful thing about community college is that you're not stuck in just one school. Now, I'll be cautioning you that, I don't recommend you going from school to school, right? Stick to one or two. And later on, other webinars, we're going to explore, what are other admissions or the other benefits of community college when it comes to what's the benefit of being in a community college, essentially. Then you have state schools like San Diego State. I had the privilege to actually visit this campus earlier last year. I was actually pretty impressed by the size of this campus. It is really nice. And, I really want to make sure that when you are looking for state schools, you are looking for, schools that are, outside your comfort zone, meaning outside, your hometown. So San Diego State is part of the CSU system. Next slide, Audi. So in order for you to apply to this, there's a $70 fee for campus application, meaning for every campus you apply to, it's going to cost you $70. Tuition-wise, it's about $5,000 per year. This does not include board. Again, the other fees that you have to pay. Right. So if you do 4 years, it's going to be about $22,000 for those 4 years of just tuition. This does not include room and board. Again, if you notice, the number keeps getting bigger and bigger. Next slide. Or you have 23 options that you can apply to. Then you have the UCs. UC Santa Barbara, for example, is one of the campuses, the UC campuses that are next to the coast. For this one, so it's about $70 per campus application. The tuition fee goes almost doubles, is $14,312 per year. So then you're looking at almost $60,000 of tuition. Again, this does not include room and board. Okay, you have about 10 different options. Technically 10, but I think for most of you, there's going to be 9 UC campuses that you can apply to. And then you have the private schools. In this photo right here, we have Santa Clara University. Application fee is $60. Tuition is $53,634. And then if you are there for 4 years, you're looking at almost $200,000, which doesn't include housing. All right, so some private schools are, liberal art colleges that are focused on well-rounded education, art schools that focus on photography, music, theater, single-sex colleges, so non-co-ed, single gender, religiously affiliated colleges, they have a connection with a religious faith, and specialized mission colleges like a HBCU or Hispanic serving institutions. The benefit about these private schools is that they have different focuses, right? So although it's private schools, they still have a different approach on what they want to teach their students. And their tuition varies from school to school. The other benefit about private schools is that their financial aid packages can vary depending on family size, can depend. Some of them are really trying to get more diversity into their schools. So there's some potential of more financial aid, which we will discuss later today or another webinar. So going back to the cost, so if you look at the cost, you will see things like direct cost, total direct cost, total cost of attendance. We're gonna break it down in a few minutes as to what all this means. Essentially, the reason why I picked tuition out of all the fees that you see here is because, again, that's one of the most important fee that you have to pay in order for you to be part of that school. Without being able to pay that tuition, you're not able to attend the school. So I want to make sure that the parents and students don't get freaked out by the $42,000. Rather, focus on, okay, how are we going to pay, the $14,000? Okay, and then looking at other stuff. For example, housing. Maybe if you are accepted to Berkeley, you might not save yourself from, some money by staying at home. Transportation, maybe instead of getting a car, you actually walk. There are other fees that are what I call, they fluctuate. They're not fixed, meaning you can take down as much as you can. Next. Again, this is this 42,000. So I'm gonna have Monique explain to you a little more about all these fees. Nope.
Oh, there you go.
If you stop sharing, then I can share. If I have permission. Okay, just a second. I always forget which to do first. Do I share first? Yeah, I think I share first. All right. Give me a sec. All right, can you see that? Great. All right, so now that Jose has totally freaked you out on the numbers of college admissions these days, let's talk about how figuring out how we're gonna pay for that. So learning early about how to pay for it is much better. So you're far advanced and you're not worrying about it in senior year. Although sometimes that's where we end up worrying about it as well, but there are ways to do that. So let's see. So we're going to talk a little bit about the college costs. I'm going to break it down for you a little bit on financial aid programs, and then other ways you can pay for college. So this is like a national look at college costs. So if your student is going to, be in California, or they're going to be, outside of California, this is kind of like an average based on the College Board, what they've come up with. And I would say that for public colleges and universities like the UCs and the CSUs that Jose was talking about, we looked at, the national average is $10,000 for tuition and fees, with a total much higher than that. But as we saw, the UCs are a little bit higher than that, and the CSUs are a little bit lower than that. So, and for private schools, you want to check on their site to make sure that you really understand what their costs are. So let's talk about what the cost of attendance and what it's made of. So the cost of attendance, is what Jose said, of course, the tuition and fees. But that large number is made up of all these different parts. Room and board, which would mean dorms if you're going to be living in the dorms. Again, you can think about dorms as a single, which would be the most expensive, a double, less expensive, or a triple in normal times. And that each time, more people in your room, of course, a little bit less money for you. And then books and supplies, again, an average. The way they come up with that is they kind of they assess the area, how much things cost on the norm, and they kind of give you an average. So the only thing that's really certain for this, for any school, is tuition and fees. So books and supplies, I just sent an email out to my seniors, or my actually class of 2020 last year, about how they can save on books and supplies. There's book rentals, there's book shares, there's getting books at the library. So these are things that you can kind of shave costs off of. You don't have to spend, $130 on that bio book, biology book, right? Let's figure out another way to do that. So just know that. Transportation, again, of course, if you're going to go to school in New York, then your transportation costs estimate and your costs are going to be pretty high. But if you're, just grabbing your bike and like driving down, or, bicycling down somewhere, it's going to be a lot less, right? And then this personal cost, so that's an average of like, well, I always tell my students, I'm like, well, you have to get deodorant, so that's part of your personal cost, right? But we can also, you don't have to get a whole new wardrobe to go to college, so you can keep those costs down. And then study abroad, which may be a little bit It depends on the program. You kind of have to look at the program and see how that works. Normally, the way study abroad works is that you pay your fees here, then you do usually have to pay for your flight somewhere else, but everything else is kind of taken care of. And then a computer purchase, which will probably be freshman year if you're going to purchase one, and that'll be like just an outlay. So what kind of computer that you're going to, you're going to get a MacBook Pro, or you're going to get a ThinkPad like what I have here. So that depends as well. So you can kind of budget that. So again, you're in charge. The only thing you're not in charge of is the tuition. And so the direct cost is the money you're going to be paying directly to the college, right? And that would be tuition and fees. If you're going to be in the dorms, it'll be room and board. Books and supplies, if you buy them from your college bookstore, and transportation expenses if you're paying to park on campus if you have a car. But you can make choices to decrease your cost of attendance by calculating what you really want to spend on things. Like I said, even room and board and, are flexible. And even eating, food plans, or like if you get a room that you can cook your own food in, might be less expensive than, going 3 times to the school cafeteria. Another thing, just in terms of what'll happen is you'll get your financial aid later on, and what you're expected to actually pay will be less, than the sticker shock price that Jose presented you with. So just know that normally we don't pay the full sticker price of schools. And the way we can figure that out about what maybe you'll be paying or what you may be expected to pay is the net price calculator. Now, every university website should have a net price calculator. In fact, they have to have it. So you can get on, let's say you're thinking about Santa Clara University, which is the most expensive. You can just put in the search function, net price calculator. And then what you can do is, if you haven't gotten your FAFSA together yet, you can pick up some of the tax information that you need for that. So for example, for the class of 2021, the FAFSA will open on October 1st, which is the day after tomorrow. You will need to use your parents' 2019 tax returns or W-2s, whichever, or both. And then you have to know about how many savings or investments you may have, or any other asset values you may have. And then so you can go through through the net price calculator, and then what'll happen is it'll kind of give you a good estimate of like maybe how much your financial aid would be, and then you'd know exactly it's not going to be maybe $42,000, maybe it's only going to be $10,000. So is $10,000 doable? Perhaps, but is $42,000 doable? Yeah, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. And so it'll also show you the school's current award policies, and usually for every campus there's some sort of scholarship page. Maybe each campus there's a time frame for their like school university scholarships, and what you want to do is you want to make sure, like there's one school, I think it's Sonoma State. Unbeknownst to me, when you apply to Sonoma State, even though you haven't been admitted, you can already apply for the scholarship. If you're admitted, then it all works together. If you're not admitted, it doesn't really matter. But it's something that if you don't know in advance, you've missed the deadline, and then that's one scholarship that you have kind of lost the access to. They're going to look at income, assets, your household size, and for merit-based aid, they look at your GPA. So financial aid programs are four main parts. There's gift aid, which I always call free money. Free money is always good. It's nothing you have to pay back. And that comes in forms of grants, and it comes in the forms of scholarships. And then there's self-help, which is like work study and loans. All of this will be on your financial aid award letter. And many people think like, oh, I don't have anything. I don't have to pay anything. It's zero. I don't have anything to pay, nothing due. But you have to really read through the award letter, because if it says loans, that means either you or your parents are going to be taking out a loan, and that does have to be paid back. So that's not necessarily free money, although it is part of your financial aid package. So that's good to get help with when you get your financial aid awards. And so work study, student loans, and then funds come from all kinds of different places. It can come from scholarships from the school. It can come from scholarships from other different places, and grants and things like that. And it's usually based on need. So let's just go a little bit into the programs. So there are federal grants. Excuse me. Federal grants require students to be either citizens or eligible non-citizens to get this free kind of money. Because grants are free money or gift aid, right? You would have to be able to complete the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA, which we're not going to go into tonight. But let me just say a little bit about the grants that are available. The Pell Grant is for once you fill out the FAFSA, it'll tell you right away whether you're Pell Grant eligible or not. So that's great to know. You'll either, you'll know like, oh, Pell Grant eligible, that's great. Pell Grants are portable. So let's say, as Jose had mentioned earlier, that sometimes you go from school to school, like, oh, I want to be in this school, no, I want to be in that school. The Pell Grant monies will go with you from school to school. And so that's a good thing. The FSEOG, which is a long acronym for basically a grant, that is tied to the school, and it's for really low-income students. And what happens is if you leave that school, then you're not able to take that money with you, because each school gets allotted a certain amount from the federal government to dish out to their students. So if you leave, then that's something that you may lose. So you have to check to see if you're gonna, you won't know that until you get your financial aid award letter, not like the Pell Grant. And then for those of you who hopefully are interested in being a teacher, you can get a Teach Grant. And basically you'd have to teach a minimum of 4 years at a high school in a high need, in a school, a public school in a high need area that serves low income students. And then there's the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, and those are for parents who have been in the armed services and have served either in Iraq or Afghanistan. So those are some of the federal grants that come through. Then you have Cal Grants, more free money, which is great, right? To obtain a Cal Grant, you have to be a California resident, U.S. citizen, non-citizen, eligible non-citizen, or AB 540 DACA, or eligible to attend the California University. So Cal Grants you can't take with you out of the state. So if you decide to go to Oregon, you can't take this grant with you. This grant is also available for students who are meet the AB 540 or DACA students. Students who also apply to receive a Cal Grant, I just want to let you know, this is part of financial aid. You have to actually complete the selective service requirements, which means is if you're a young man and you're going to be 18 or are 18, you actually have to, you can check a box and they'll basically put your name in for selective service. It doesn't mean you're going to be called or anything like that. They just want your name in this database. And that's the only way you can receive federal funds or actually state funds. And then to maintain your grant, you have to maintain satisfactory academic progress, meaning that you're continuing moving towards getting your degree and you're doing pretty well on your grades in college. So so the Cal Grants, the way you get that is it's need-based, and it's so it's based on income and assets, and also based on your GPA. So just briefly, a Cal Grant A, you need at least a 3.0 GPA, and then the income and asset ceilings, you have to fall within a certain income category. A Cal Grant B, it has to be like at least a 2.0 GPA, and then a Cal Grant C, more to do with students that are going for certificates, so it's a different form. And then I'm not going to go into the amounts, but this is something super important that you make sure that you check in with your school about. They have to submit your transcripts or your GPA to verify so that you can get this. And then it's kind of another separate process up to that. But it's still free money, and it's you could be eligible for Cal Grant A or Cal Grant B. And it would go for 4 years as long as you keep up your academics. And then there's institutional funds. So this can be free as well. So these are basically grants and scholarships that come directly from the university. Sometimes you hear that private colleges are more affordable than public colleges, because sometimes they have a lot of money and they can actually really afford to give you very large scholarships. Stanford, who has a large endowment, I always say they have so much money in their basement they don't know what to do with, but they do help students who are under, I think, families who make under, I think, $100,000, they pay either full tuition, and if it's lower than that, they pay tuition and they pay for the rest of the cost of attendance. So, so that's a really good thing. And so that doesn't matter how they're funded, but They do create their own criteria, so private schools especially can create their own criteria on how they decide to giving those out. So you want to check on that when you're applying as well. So usually like I said, check on the school's website, public and private, and look at scholarships and see what's available. And then scholarships are found all kinds of places. I would say Berkeley High School has one of the most amazing scholarship support I've seen in many of the schools that I've worked in. They'll bring you in, they'll help you write they'll help you complete the applications. They have a lot of different opportunities there. There's community scholarships. So I always say, hey, ask your parents. Maybe their job offers scholarships for students, ask around if you have a place of worship, ask there and see if they offer scholarships. And then scholarships take a while, a lot of searching and things like that. So if you're a junior or younger, you should start doing that now. And if you're a senior, you should definitely start doing that now. We can help you with that as well. And just check in your community. You just want to check in your community for scholarships, but that's a great way. And I always tell my students, I'm like, hey, they're like, oh, I don't want to write an essay for a $500 scholarship. I just want to go for like the ones that are like, $20,000. I'm like, well, the ones that are $20,000 are going to be much more competitive. But if you get a few $500 scholarships, right, or a couple of $1,000, that'll add up to $5,000 or $6,000 quickly. So just apply for many. Don't just like, I'm just going to go for the $20,000 one. I already kind of mentioned this. This is two good websites, Big Future and scholarships.com, that are recommended to use for searching scholarships. There are several other ones that you can put in all the criteria, and then they'll start kind of like offering you, like kind of showing scholarships that would be available to you. But again, start in your community, start at your school, start in your surroundings. I always think of it like a target, like start really, really close and then go out, because the ones that are in your community, they're looking to support students in their community. That's what those scholarships are for. So look at those first. And Berkeley High has a great support of that. And let's just talk a little bit about work study. Work study is actually money that you work for. So it is federal funds, but it's something that you actually work for. A lot of students think like, oh, it's part of my financial aid. When I get on campus, they're going to give me a job. It doesn't work like that, right? What happens with work studies, you actually have to look for a job. So if you're about to go to school and you have work study on your federal aid, on your award letter, then if you're about to start school in August, you should start looking for a job on your campus in June. Why? Because everyone's looking for a job on the campus, right? And on the websites, they will show you like, where do you look and where do you put your name and where do you put your resume. So you definitely want to do that. That money will come directly to you. You will get a check. So you need a bank account, and they'll direct deposit, and it will be up to you to actually budget and manage that money. So it's a wonderful way to gain experience. It's ways to meet new people on campus, depending on where you work. Maybe you can work in an area that you want to study in. So that's great. You can put that all the work that you do for work study on your resume. So when you're, going to actually get a job when you're done, you'll have that already. Additionally, for work study students, their academics is a priority. So you will see a lot of work study students during midterms aren't working. Like they're in the study, they're studying, they're in their study groups or in the library, wherever, in their study rooms. And the same thing around finals. So if a student, it's just known on campus, like, oh, it's midterms, or it's dead week, students are just not working on those times, and that's expected. They want you to keep your GPA up. And then loans, a little bit on loans. There's different types of loans. It is money that has to be paid back, although for student loans, the interest rate is pretty low compared to other private loans. I always recommend, if students can get a federal loan, which is the subsidized or unsubsidized loans, it's a better interest rate, and there's different ways to pay it back, like more options on how you can pay it back than private loans. You can also merge them all into one and just pay one payment later on. For undergraduate students, usually you can get about $5,500 for the year. If it's subsidized, it means that while you are in school, the government is paying the interest rate. So if you borrowed, all you borrowed in all the years there was $5,500, and you graduate, that's all you're going to owe if it's a subsidized loan. Unsubsidized loans, you will be accruing interest while you are in school. So if you borrowed $5,500 and in 4 years, it's going to be more than $5,500, depending on the interest rate. I often tell my students, you'll get every quarter, you get like a little interest statement saying, hey, you know, you've accrued $6 in interest. Well, if you have $6, just pay the $6, and then you'll kind of be subsidizing your own unsubsidized loans. And then there's the Parent Plus loans, often on a financial aid award letter. And the Parent Plus loans is a better rate normally, and they can borrow a whole bunch more than the student can. That is expected to be paid as soon as you actually take it out. You're supposed to start paying it back. But for students, they don't have to start paying their loan back until they're 6 months out of school. So if you take 6 months off, guess what? Your loans come due. But if you wait and then you graduate, then 6 months after graduation, you know, they kind of like wait for you to get a job and get yourself established, and then they can start paying back. And then there's many, many different ways to pay back. So let's just talk about a little bit other ways to pay for college. So I just went through all this financial aid, you know, free money, loans, subsidized, unsubsidized, lots of terms. You'll hear about them more and more. But there's other ways to pay for college if you're able to save, right? There's a couple of different plans. There's a 529 plan. It's a college savings program. It's for you can save up to like if you save enough money, you can use up to $10,000 a year towards education for any kind of tuition. You could do it like for for someone else and have like an account for them. And then another type of savings plan is an IDA, an individual development account. And that's based on your income level. So it's for families at the federal poverty level. So it's within like 25,000, you have to be making like 25,000 a year, within 200% of that. And then what'll happen is you'll start saving, and then after a time you become eligible for matching funds. So you'll actually have your funds matched. And when you're ready to use that for tuition, let's say you saved 5,000 in it, they'll match that 5,000 and they'll send it directly to the school. So another thing you can do is AmeriCorps, which is something that I did. It's basically working and the money, and you make money, but then you also will be able to, and it's all kinds of different kinds of jobs, but it's usually in where service is needed in our communities. Then they'll actually pay off part of your loan or all of your loan. And then there's, of course, military service, and you can get, VA help after that, and that will help pay off your loans as well. And finally, the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. I would say that is basically like a discount if you wanted to leave the state and go to Oregon or a bunch of, like, I think it's 14 different states. You chose to do a public school education outside, you can actually get a pretty big discount. So it's a way of saving money or spending money. The other thing is I'd like to say is that if you're a free reduced lunch, for public universities in California, there's a fee waiver. So instead of paying $70 per application, let's say to a CSU or a UC, if you're eligible, you can actually apply for 4 colleges in the UCs and 4 colleges in the CSUs with a fee waiver. So that you wouldn't have to pay anything, and you can actually apply for 8 colleges in 2 different systems. And then after that, it would be $70,000. I'd like to offer just this from my company. We have a YMCA Learning. It's a financial wellness thing. There's a link there, and you could look up paying for college, and you can just register, and it's just a whole bunch of stuff on budgeting, and how to buy a car, how to buy a house, a whole bunch of great stuff. So I just want to put that out there just as a free resource from my organization. And you can ask José to get with me if you want more information about that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Monique.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm going to stop sharing, and then we can go for questions.
All right. Howdy, do you want to go back? Can you go back to the slide, please? Any questions?
Oh, that's a good one.
Questions or thoughts about what both of us have just shared with you. You can say it or you can type it in the chat window. Questions, thoughts, or even thoughts like what is something surprising about what we just said?
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you go like more in depth on the SI, like HSI, like private schools for like Hispanic students?
So essentially, there are schools like UC Merced, for example, or Fresno State, that they understand that most of they have a large population of Latinx students, so they are aware on like from curriculum, financial aid to support them, as well as counseling services. So it's just schools that are they know they understand their demographics, so they try to provide services for them. And I can go into details in another webinar because same thing with HBCUs. They have a specialized way on how they work with their students. Okay.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
So for any school that's a Hispanic serving institution, they have to have at least a 25% Latino population on that campus. And they actually apply for funds. So those schools receive extra funds just to help Latino students. They may have they may build up like a centro where it's just, for getting extra help, academics, or, where do I wash my clothes, or I need laundry. So there's a certain particular service that they provide when they have at least a 25%. Many schools have way more than 25%. UC Merced is definitely one of them, and several of the CSUs also are HSIs. And then to just answer the question, why is it more expensive for a single person dorm if it's smaller? It's a good question. It's price per room. So the rooms are certain costs, and it's true they are smaller, but you can, they'll give you a certain price for that single room, and they'll give you, if you had another one, a single room, then what'll happen is if there's 2 people, they'll split that in half. And if there's 3 people, they'll split it 3 ways. So the cost of the room ends up being less expensive, but if you're by yourself, it's more expensive.
Since you're paying for privacy.
Yeah.
Good questions. Any other questions or thoughts?
Can you talk a little bit more about FASA or FASA?
We are actually going to have another webinar that is going to specialize on just that topic on October 26th.
We'll go into it in depth then.
But that's definitely something all of you should attend, because I think everybody should apply to FASA. Right. Any other questions or thoughts? Going once, going twice. Yes.
Wait.
Can the student get the same grant the following year? Like if they apply the freshman year, can they apply the sophomore year?
So on the Cal grant, yes, that will go with you any school in California, and that's designed to be for all the years that you're in school for 4 years. Pell Grant is the same. So university grants, you're not quite sure. It all depends. The university can decide how they want to distribute their grants, but I can say Pell Grant and Cal Grant, as long as you keep up your academics, then you basically can keep that. And as long as there's not a windfall of money, because every year they'll check through your FAFSA. I had a student who, she had the Cal Grant, and then her dad lost his job. And then he took a whole bunch of money out of retirement. And then, of course, all that was on the taxes. And the next year she couldn't get Cal Grant because it looked like the dad, had just had an influx of money. So it's still, every year it depends on your income. So if it's not too radically changing, then yes.
And every year you do have to apply to FAFSA or DACA. So every year you need to submit that application. The other thing is that once you submit, you can actually appeal if something happened, right? So in this case, let's say unemployment happens, you can talk to your financial aid office and explain your circumstance. Obviously, you have to do a lot of documentation, show proof. You can't just say, I need the money. You have to definitely, write them a letter, explain the circumstances, potentially submit paperwork, which is something that, in White Scholars, we help our seniors with, appeals.
Mm-hmm.
Assume that the parents' income, nothing changed with the situation. Do you know how much different FAFSA from year to year? Could be any slightly increase for the second year, or how big the difference? you probably have like experience with other students, just to give an idea like how big it is.
So it depends on something called the expected family contribution. And we're going to go through that a little bit more next time. But there is an online thing that you can do. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's an expected family contribution calculator. Actually, you could, let's say your student is now about to go to college. You can get on it. I can see if I can find it while we're talking and put it in the chat. And you can just go there. You put in your information, and it'll tell you what your expected family contribution is. That's what you're expected to kind of like have on hand for your student to go to college. For some students, that number's 0. And so if that number is 0, the family really does not have the means to help that student. The school is going to try and figure out how to help that student as much as they can. And so they'll look for grants, and you'll Pell Grant or whatever it is, you'll have that. And hopefully that actually covers everything. And then you just have to get them to the school. And everything else is pretty much taken care of. Year to year, that may change based on what is going on with the university and where they're putting their funds. So the following year, if you still have a 0 EFC, right, they may be able to fund you the same way, or they may say, okay, this year, actually you have to take out a loan. Part of your package will be a loan this year. It's not going to be just all grants and all, scholarships. And that may, continue to go through the 4 years. So. And then they also want to know, like a lot of students, they work in the summers, and that money that they make in the summer, actually, they should be saving some of that because then that will actually help them in their financial aid. And the financial aid may decrease as a result of the student having earned some money and saved it over the summer. Okay, enough about financial aid. Sorry, Jose.
Thank you.
No, it's good. It's good. Again, we're going to be focusing a lot on FAFSA and DACA next time, because that itself, that application could be tricky because it will ask a lot of questions, a lot of tax information that often parents don't, typically that's kind of like parent stuff, not my kid stuff. But unfortunately, when it comes for, financial aid, you do need to disclose information. So I appreciate, these questions. Last question before we kind of start wrapping things up.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Albert. So earlier in the presentation, there was a cost for health insurance. So is you have to have health insurance when you go to college?
Yeah, so actually that's, so there are certain fees. So yes, you do have to have health insurance. So option 1, you can get it from the university, or you can actually, if the student has insurance through their parents, they can actually use that insurance and get that insurance fee waived.
Good. Okay.
Which is kind of what I did. But you do need to show proof of insurance.
Okay.
Same thing when it comes to housing. But a few years ago, like UC Berkeley will make students have at least 1 year, the freshman year, stay at home or stay on campus. But then they realize that, it's kind of unfair for those who are actually live on campus, like near campus already. Sure. So they kind of waive that out. So then if you live on a certain radius, you're not forced to live near campus. But yeah, so that's why it's very important to know what the fees are and ask the admissions office, and they're like, what is this, right?
Okay, and then another question: if you're if you want financial aid, and let's say you're 19 years old, they still request you to show your parents' tax returns?
That is correct. I believe, and Monique, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's up to 23 years old that they ask for. 24. 24 years old that they ask. So they're only, the way that sometimes you can bypass that if you become an emancipated minor.
Yes.
But that you have to go through court to do that. And, there are students that I've seen do that, but it is quite a bit of paperwork.
Okay, so my last question is with the uncharted territory we're in with COVID-19. I've heard on the news that a lot of colleges are just shutting down around the country because they can't afford to stay in business.
Yes, that is correct.
So I've heard everything you've said in this presentation, and it could be that I'm scratching my head thinking, where's money going to come from if states are going into huge debt. The country's going into debt. Where's the scholarship money going to be coming from in the future? And I'm not expecting you to answer that, but it's something for us to all think about, I think.
Well,
Yes, go ahead, Monique.
I was going to say it's also an opportunity for higher education to reinvent itself, and that's what it's in the process of doing. The same old is not going to work anymore. There are a whole bunch of different programs, like 3-year bachelor's degrees coming up in certificates and bachelor's degree combination. So there's it'll be interesting to see what they do, but it's fascinating to watch, having been in this business a long time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much for those questions. Audi, can I go to the next slide? All right, so my takeaways of all this, be informed, right? Attend things like this. Sometimes schools will offer their own presentations. Reach out for people like Monique, just offer a service for you to know. Just get informed, get as much information, do your research, and start planning. Even though if you're a senior, you're probably thinking, well, it's too late for me. No, it is not, right? From, okay, the FAFSA application is opening in a few days. What do I need to get going so I can apply? And sometimes applying earlier is actually good, because once you submit your FAFSA application early, the schools get it early and they can start applying for you, right? And so the earlier you start planning, the less stressed it will be. And the third thing is ask for help, ask questions. Really, really get yourself, again, going back to my first thing, be informed. Don't feel afraid of asking questions. I have one of my biggest mentors, influential mentors, once told me, if you're on ASK, you're on GET. It took me like a few seconds to realize that, but that's true. And that's what I did with my sister, and helping my mom pay for her education, right? Is how do we make her college education much affordable? And luckily, both of us, my sister and I, have zero student debt. And that is, for 2 kids, and for, again, a mom who, who's doing, who doesn't have a lot of income. That's amazing, right? And it's doable. But again, you need to be informed, you need to start planning, and you need to start asking questions now, okay? All right, next slide, Audi. So save the date, FAFSA and DREAM Act application breakdown, Monday, October 26th at 6:30. Please save it, tell your friends, even people that are not in Y Scholars are invited to this. So definitely save it. This is information that, I think all students should know. All families should know as well, because it is going to involve family, planning, okay? All right, and that concludes. Any final thoughts, Monique, or?
No, I also put in the chat just some of the calculators that are available. If families want to start playing around with the calculators now, it's better to know in advance so you get an idea.
Then there was Monique, I'll get your information. There were some folks asking about your contact info, so we'll send it out. We'll send up a follow-up email to this session, and then I don't know if Monique will be willing to share your slides as well. We'll send out the materials for this.
Yeah, I can put all of those. Yeah, it's kind of like there's a whole bunch of stuff extra in there for the next session.
No problem.
But I'll cut it down.
We'll hide it. Yeah.
I know. Okay. Yeah, I could do that.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely gonna send that follow-up email. We're gonna be sending a feedback survey, so telling me how I did, things that I need to work on. Maybe do my hair next time. Definitely, we want to get your input. So when we send that email, there's going to be a link to a survey. So if you can please answer it, it should be about 5 questions. It helps us make this webinar series more useful for you all. And that's it on my end.
All right. Well, I see 2 thumbs up from Albert there. I'm going to give a claps for the 2 presenters. Thank you both so much for doing this. Thank you all, Y Scholars. We started on time. We ended on time. I mean, how often does this happen? This is so cool. I really appreciate you all joining us this evening. And Scholars, will see you the rest of this week. And parents, will see you next time in October. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.